Hello and welcome, I am SimUK. Today I'm going to be reviewing Farming Simulator 19 some 4 months after its release to see if it's any good now. This review will be from the perspective of those of us looking for ultimate realism, and it will come in 2 parts. Part 1 will be a brief overview of the pros and the cons with a sum up of these things. This is what I like to call my quick review and will amount to what most YouTubers laughably call a review. If you prefer your games to be arcade in their nature rather than challenging, then this is likely not going to be the right review for you. There are plenty of relaxed Farm Sim 19 YouTubers out there who don't tell you all about the issues in this game, and I suggest that you go and watch them instead. They love sheep. With that being said, everyone is welcome here, and I do respect and appreciate your thoughts and feedback. Now, SimUK is a tiny YouTube channel. What we say here rarely makes any resonance with anything on anybody's radar at all, ever. We have very low views. I'm not an entertaining YouTuber, but I tell you what I am. I am brutally honest. I tell the truth and I say it as I see it. I don't care if I was given a game for free, which in this instance I was. Big shout out to THL, the Hidden Levels, who hooked me up with a key back at release day. And let me just explain to you that I've tried to make this review about 3 or 4 times now, but this game winds me up. In fact, giants wind me up for a number of reasons, and I will explain to you all of these reasons in this review today. The Farming Simulator series is a decade old now, with 7 full-blown iterations to date and many smaller sideline versions too. Farm Sim 19 is the latest release, and with it comes a whole host of new features, content, and even some functionality. Unfortunately, despite the fact that this truly is the best version of Farm Sim to date, giants have once again ignored feature requests and refused to fix known bugs repeatedly asked for by its long-term player base, favouring instead to appease console players and focus more on inclusivity, which in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. I am personally a long-time owner of the Farm Sim titles, all the way back to '09, and I have spent many happily modded hours within various editions of Farm Sim, but each vanilla release has been nothing short of a disappointment. I have come to the conclusion that actually Farm Sim in its vanilla state is not a game and should never be purchased on that basis. It is in fact a framework upon which a game that's worth playing can be built. This of course places heavy reliance on the modding community, and this time round they do seem to be a little bit less willing to participate. It's been 4 months and there's only 250 official released mods available, many more scattered around the web, but you pick those up at your own peril. In my humble opinion, the worst Farm Sim release in recent years was most definitely Farm Sim 17, which not only failed to improve upon anything that Farm Sim 15 offered, but chose instead to introduce trains to proceedings, something which no self-respecting Farm Sim fan would ever have considered to be high up on their list of priorities. Thankfully, Farm Sim 19 is a much better release. It has improved graphics to a point. It has more realistic vehicle physics and behaviour, again, only to a point. And it even has expanded and improved upon the audio, with bugs of course. It even introduces new crops and animals, with some serious game-breaking bugs too. All of this is to ensure that Farm Sim 19 is by far the biggest and most inclusive title to date. They have even made some significant, and I do mean significant, enhancements to the UI, with bugs, missing options, issues and more. The super quick review is this. Farm Sim 19 is, hand on heart, not telling you a lie, Farm Sim 19 is the best Farm Sim title that I have ever seen released on PC. But unfortunately, for every single good aspect that this version introduces, there is an equally negative aspect that has been either introduced or remains from legacy titles. For me, Farm Sim 19 is without doubt the inclusive ambidextrous edition. What this game gives in one hand, it takes with the other. but at least the women folk and the kids on consoles are happy. So I'll briefly speak about all the features that are worth speaking about in Farm Sim 19. First of all, let's go with the graphics overhaul. At one point we were led to believe it was a completely new graphics engine. This is not the case. It's just an overhaul of their existing system, but it looks pretty damn good. I've got to say, it looks better than FS17 in a number of ways. Weather and lighting has been improved. The weather is not dynamic, but you can now at least see moving clouds. So you can sort of see the rain clouds moving in. Unfortunately, there's no snow, and obviously as a result of that, it means that there are no seasons included either. Now, previously in Farm Sim 17, 15, etc., we did have an awful lot of decent mods, and the seasons mod from FS17 for me was an absolute game changer. I understand that it is on the way, but it's not here at the moment. So 4 months in, we are still looking at very much a vanilla state game, no seasons, and that is, for me, a big shame. I've got to say though, if and when the seasons mod does land, I do think this is going to be sensational, and I really cannot wait for that. The lighting in the game, I think, is also improved. It looks, to me at least, better than it did in Farm Sim 17. The metallic sheen on most surfaces looks better. Both headlights and sunlight also seem to be vastly improved, although there are some areas where it just looks really odd. I would say, and there is a mod for this, there is a shader mod that you can get for Farm Sim 19, which makes a huge difference to this, but I would say that on a number of occasions I have felt that the lighting feels superimposed rather than realistic. It's too bright, it's too dense, it's difficult to explain. In the daytime it's fine, I think it just gets worse at night. It just appears to be superimposed, but like I say, there is a shader mod that you can get for Farm Sim 19, which I haven't looked at yet, but I've seen the results that can come from adding that and just applying a bit of shader effect, or reducing the shader levels, and I highly recommend you go and look at that. It's something I'm going to be looking at for sure. One thing that really upsets me in this game, and I do mean it upsets me, and the reason why it upsets me so much is because it's so constant. It's everywhere you look, it's every step you take. You can even stand still and look down at the ground, and all you can see are these god-awful shadows jaggedly moving across the ground. They are horrendous. If you're looking north in the distance and you slightly turn your head to the northeast, or maybe even to the east, you can see the shadows being rendered across the rooftops and the trees. It's awful. I need to figure out how to turn that off because it is so bad. I mean, it really detracts from the immersion aspect. I did intend to look at some modded maps and see whether the effect there was improved or reduced. Ideally, what I wanted to look at were maps that were only suitable for PC and Mac. I found one, but I couldn't install it, so I've been unable to test this, and I've basically run out of time, so apologies for that. But I suspect that even the modded maps are going to end up looking very much the same. I think it's a core element of the game, and I don't think there's any way of sort of resolving that, if you will. Vehicles and equipment. Well, Farm Sim 19 is the biggest and the best of all the Farm Sim titles. It has to be said. There's more than 300 vehicles and machines from over 100 brands. And Fendt and John Deere are now here. There's lots of wheel and tyre brands that have been added. There's a whole host of new stuff here. In terms of what's been added, yeah, you've got to give them a thumbs up. It's pretty good. And the fact that they've managed to leash John Deere into things, that was unexpected, but I'm very glad to see them there. Wear and tear system on vehicles. This is something I am absolutely ecstatic with. This is such a good feature. They have really pulled a big fat thumbs up from me on this particular feature. As things are used, as machines and vehicles are used, they degrade over time. This reduces their working speed and their strength degrades as well. And they also look a bit beaten and bashed up and dirty and whatnot. Now there's a mod that improves the effect of the dirt. I think it's called Dirt Color mod or something like that. I'll get to the mods another time, but that really makes the whole dirt aspect look a lot better. And when you've got the two working together, It really is a fantastic feature. Now, on a side note of that, they've also introduced, and this is where I say they give with one hand and they take with the other. So you've got this fantastic system here whereby things degrade over time. But it would be so much better if they just push the envelope ever so slightly. So let's say, for argument's sake, you buy a plough, and this plough can be used at up to 9 miles per hour. So you're driving along quite happily at 9 miles per hour, and unfortunately in this game you will be, because you will be physically limited to the speed that that tool can cope with. What I would rather see is that you can drive at any goddamn speed you like, but the faster you drive, the quicker that piece of machinery degrades. That would be perfect. Really would be perfect. And they are just that close to getting it spot on, yet that far away. And because it's giants, and because giants don't listen to people like me, I know for a fact that we won't get to see that ever. Even if you all ask for it, again and again and again, it just won't happen. Another thing that I've been asking for 5 years is upgrades to the cab so that we have moving parts. Now, they've done some things, but not all things. So, for example, if you put your accelerator down, you will see the accelerator pedal move. I've yet to see the brake pedal move, so I don't think that's been implemented. I could be wrong on that point. I haven't checked all vehicles. I haven't had time. But certainly the accelerator pedal does move now. Now, what doesn't move are the indicators. So there's no indicator movement. You do have a forward and a back gear directional changer thing. I've never driven a tractor, to be fair, so I don't know if that's how it's done. But I rather suspect it isn't. I rather suspect there's a gear shifter or your generic sort of automatic gear shifter. They haven't implemented anything like that, so that's a bit of a disappointment. But on the upside, the cab lighting and the dashboard illuminations and the sort of panel information that you have that's in some of the tractors, not all of them, that's really good. Some of them even have really useful real-time information like wheel slippage. So, for example, it will give you information about ground speed and wheel speed, and obviously if wheel speed is higher than ground speed, you've got wheel slippage. The game itself doesn't have the kind of physics to really make the most of that, but I'm glad to see it. It's a step in the right direction for sure. They've also added hydraulic hoses. Unfortunately, you cannot manually connect them, which is a bit of a shame. Now in FS17, Giants actually released a mod themselves which allowed you to get out and manually attach stuff. I'm hoping maybe they're going to do that again, but it rather looks unlikely. Thankfully, I have found a mod totally outside of Giants which does achieve that, and it works pretty well, but it doesn't have anything to do with the hoses, unfortunately. So at the moment at least, the hoses are nothing more than an aesthetic pleasure. I also think they've improved the audio. I've got to say that the tractor sounds are really very good, and when you're dragging a plough behind you or a cultivator behind you, whatever it is, the audio effect that you're getting from that device does really fit with A, where it is in reality to your player's position, B, what type of device it is, and C, what kind of speed you're doing. You know, the PTO, for example, when you start powering up a device that's utilising the PTO, you can actually kind of hear the engine drop a bit, which is really nice. So they really have improved that. At the moment, 4 months after release, it's still quite buggy. There's some really weird noises that I hear quite often when I get into tractors. I've no idea what they are. I can't even place them. And what it tends to be are that there are maybe 2 audio files that when played together make a fantastic sound, but when one of them has failed or one of them is playing when it shouldn't, you do get some weird noises. For example, I jumped out of a tractor at one point and it just sounded like someone was firing a cannon far off in the distance. The tractor was still running, but I couldn't hear it. So I jumped back in the tractor and turned the engine off, and sure enough, it was the tractor that was making that weird noise. So there are some bugs. Will they get fixed? It's Giants. Will they get fixed? I don't know. Maybe. You can also unload the contents of a sprayer. You can do this with the fertilizer spreader or the seeder as well. Whatever you've got in there, you can drop down in a sort of bag format. Now, the way things were done before, they were kind of static You used to drive to the seed in order to pick up the seeds. You can now pick seed up and travel around and put it wherever you like. So if you're working on a particular field and you know it's going to take a couple of bags, you buy a couple of bags. There's actually a mod available from Giant. It's very good. Allows you to pick up these bags and drive them up to the field and just drop them off. So I mean, that in itself is a really fantastic feature. Personally, and I've always had an issue with this, what I'd like to see is the seeder only have the seeds in it that you buy. So if you buy sunflower seeds and put them in the seeder, then you can only sow sunflower seeds, because so often I accidentally, God only knows how, because I'm pretty sure I never pressed the Y button, occasionally, whilst I'm seeding a field, I end up seeding something completely different to what I was intending to seed. And not because I didn't carefully select which one I wanted, but at some point it's just swapped. Could be a bug. I'm going to have to look through my videos and try and figure out how that happened to be this time, but it's not the first time it's happened. I would much rather you buy tomato seeds, sunflower seeds, wheat, barley, rye, whatever, doesn't matter. Just buy the seeds that you want, and that's the seed that's in the bag. And if you put that bag into the seeder, then that's the bag you have. I mean, they've already implemented the ability to unload the seeds from the device, so why not just have a single seed device in there? That would be so much better, and it would help me out a huge amount. I'd much prefer that than this magic seed that can grow anything you want. One of the biggest new features that I have to mention, of course, is the whole land ownership, buildings and terraforming land deformation tools. Whew, that was a mouthful. Buildings now need to be bought, unless you're playing on the easy level, and I'll talk about that in a minute because that's quite a good feature, but buildings now need to be purchased, like the farmhouse, but oddly, they're not essential. So when you start off with nothing at all, you don't have to buy a farmhouse, and what will happen is you just spawn in the middle of God knows where. I think that's a bit odd. I think it would have made more sense if you spawned at the shop or at the railway station, or, you know, somewhere logical, but just in the middle of bloody nowhere, that really doesn't make any sense to me at all. I really wish you could either change your spawn point or you were forced into buying a property. So if you bought some land, you would have to put down a farmhouse. Now, obviously the farmhouse that's available at the moment, the only one, is like 250,000 or something. And when you start with only 500,000 and you've got to buy a plot of land before you can do anything, that's way too expensive. So how about there's a caravan or a wooden shack or something that's relatively cheap that you can just put together and sleep in until you earn enough money to buy a proper property. I think that would just all work much better. But that's my humble opinion. A lot of people are going to be disagreeing with that. I know, no problem at all. As for the as for the miscellaneous objects, for some God knows why reason, Giants decided to remove the beehive and the greenhouses that were in Farm Sim 17. I'm pretty sure they're in 15 as well. Anyway, they were a really nice feature. I really liked the fact that they were there, and for some reason they just dropped them. Now they have replaced the beehive and the greenhouses. The greenhouses to me look the same, but the beehive now looks to be I think they've upgraded it. It looks more polished now, which is really good. So I'm glad they listened to the community and they reintroduced those. It wasn't a big deal for them. I can't really understand why they chose to remove them. Perhaps they were hoping to release them in a DLC or something in the future. I don't know. But they're there now and they're free and they're available in the mod hub. So you can just go and pick those up, which is really good. And also somebody else has brought in the solar panels, so they're available as well. I don't think Giants were responsible for that, but I could be mistaken. Still, they are available. I've definitely seen them on the mod hub, so you can go and grab those as well. Unfortunately, none of these miscellaneous items have any kind of functionality whatsoever. You can't open the doors, look in there, really kind of do anything with them at all. You just plonk them down and forget about them. It's a bit of a shame, an opportunity missed, but okay, they've been like that for a long time. It's nothing new. Now, as for the deformation tools, as I like to call them, the aggressive deformation tools, they're pretty bloody terrible. They're quite poorly explained. The UI for placing stuff is really terrible. I could go on for hours about how bad these things are, but you basically have two shapes. You have a dome or a square shape, and to be honest with you, they both draw almost exactly the same bloody thing. I don't know what the difference in the two is. That's when you're painting land, by the way. You can also, when you're terraforming, when you're changing the height and the sort of position of the ground itself, the actual floor, if you will, when you're doing that, you'll find that they are pretty aggressive in a number of ways. So at max setting, you'll be drawing like 50-foot solid spikes out the floor. God only knows why they think we need it to be that aggressive. I think it needs to be more controllable, more gentle. Certainly that is a ridiculous speed at which things go up. And what's worse is that if you don't own the land next to it, you will have an almighty issue trying to get rid of that accidental mistake. And even if you are lucky enough to get rid of that accidental mistake, you will find areas where you cannot get a nice smooth edge. So you're going to have these really sharp drop-offs all over the place, purely because this tool is very difficult to use, and it's just really clunky and badly put together. I think the best way to explain it is that it's functional but crappy to use. I have read that they're completely redesigning it. They're bringing out a totally new terraforming tool, and it's going to be much, much better. To be honest with you, it couldn't be any worse. The worst thing is, I mean, the terraforming tool is pretty bad, but what's worse than that is when you place a building down, there's no kind of preview to what you're going to do. And if it looks bloody awful, because sometimes you look at it and it looks like it's flat, and you put it down, but it isn't flat. So now you've got like a 15-foot solid high cliff face that you've just introduced right in your lovely farm that you were trying to build. It really isn't good. I'm not impressed with it at all. I didn't enjoy using it one bit. Yeah, I mean, it's cool that it's there. The idea of building your own farm from nothing, that is a cool feature. It's just being done really badly, and it's just half-assed. It's good, but it could have been so much better. It's just really clunky and awful to use. I don't like it at all. But I am glad to hear that they're bringing out something else. Also, and not everybody's aware of this, when you buy a property and you place it somewhere, you're also paying for the terraforming that needs to be done. Now, unless you've got the help screen up, you're not going to see that. But in the top left-hand corner, it does show you the increased cost of placing a building. Most people are probably aware of that now, but not everybody is, so I thought I'd just quickly mention it. In addition to everything I've mentioned so far, they've also introduced livestock animals, in the form of horses and dogs. Now, I think horses and dogs, really, that's inclusivity for women. And I don't want to sound sexist. I'm not being sexist. Now, I have a wife, I have sisters, I have daughters. I'm 100% for inclusivity, but I think that's the only reason that was introduced, was to be more inclusive. I mean, they did bring female characters into the game a while back, and everyone sort of clapped and bravoed, and well done, that's excellent, yes. But there are bugs that have been in the game and issues that have been in the game for 10 years that you haven't bothered to address. So, being inclusive is all great, but let's not forget that for 10 years, people have been complaining about these issues that they want fixed. Better physics gears for the tractors, etc. And the dog? The dog is the dumbest goddamn thing I've ever seen in my life. I hate that dog. You can't pick what dog you have. You can't name it. What I find really interesting is, if you're standing next to the dog, you can call it over to you. But if you're standing 10 feet away from the dog, you can't call it to you. What is that? Who is responsible for that dog? Awful. Absolutely awful. Okay, so there's a bunch of pens, if you will, pig, cow pasture, sheep, and obviously the horse paddock. They can be different sizes, and depending on the size of the area depends on the number of animals that you can have stored within it. Now, I ran out of time to really experiment with this, but I ran into a serious issue that just sucked up so much time. Every time I try and get on the horse, the whole screen goes black. There's no stopping it, there's no fixing it. There's a few people who've had this problem. and all the solutions that they offer so far have not worked for me. So it's a repeatable bug. Every time I get on the horse, black screen. Every time. There's no way of getting out of it. It's completely dead to me. I cannot ride the horses. I cannot tell you what that's like. I can't breed the horses because you have to ride them to make them happy, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So I really haven't had an opportunity to experiment with that. But 4 months after release, there are still some significant game-breaking issues like this. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, and I'm unfortunately one of these people. Out of interest, I'm running a GTX 1080 Ti. I've tried my graphics high, my graphics low. It's not that. I've updated all my graphics drivers. It's not that. I've reset my graphics to default. It's not that. Yeah, no idea what's causing it, but certainly it's a big problem, and it's, you know, it has to be the game that needs to fix that, or isolate what the problem is so that it can teach people to, you know, whatever, I don't know. But yeah, so unfortunately I haven't really been able to experience that very much. There is a mod that allows you to have more pens available. I think the limit is I don't know, tens of pens, but there is a mod that allows you to, I think, place up to 32 or something, and it highly recommends that you don't place them all together because it would absolutely kill your FPS. So that's just as a by the by. I am glad to say that milk finally can be sold, unlike in Farm Sim 17 where they refused to implement that feature. And they've also introduced birds which kind of fly up off the ground. That's a really nice touch. I like that a lot. New crops, we've got oats which are used to feed horses. Obviously I haven't even got into doing that because of the horses issue. And we also have cotton now, which brings with it new equipment. And yeah, I'd say they were both good additions to the game. I really quite like that. They've also introduced better soil management. So you need lime to keep the nutrients high, and also you need to remove weeds, which can be removed early with a farrow during its junior stages, or later on with pesticides or whatever. I also like the fact that they've introduced an option in the menu to have crop destruction turned on or off, but I don't think it applies to fields that you don't own, which is a bit of a shame. So also contracts are not affected by this. Neither are the AI helpers, which in my humble opinion are the most stupid AI to have been released with Farm Sim. I'd rather go back to FS15 where they at least looked like they were human a bit, but occasionally got stuck on a tree. I'd much rather that because you could do something about it. But the way they drive now, oh my god, they're the thickest UI helpers. They're not helpers, they're hinderers. They're UI hinderers. They are absolutely awful. Can't stand them. Having said that, the contracts have changed now, so there's no time limit on anything anymore. So if you've got crop destruction, you can drive over other people's fields and you won't destroy them at all, which I think is a bit of a shame. You ought to be able to have that option on, and maybe you get fined. Do you know what I mean? If you destroy somebody's crops, then maybe you have to pay compensation for having done that. That would be better. But you know, it's like, yeah, you destroy your own crops, but the AI don't destroy your crops, so they can just drive around your field all over your crops and they don't destroy anything as far as I've seen. And also, if you've got crop withering on, that doesn't affect the missions either. So missions now can last forever. So you can start a mission today, complete it in 2055, and they'll still be perfectly fine. So I think that's a bad introduction to the game. I really do. Crops also have physics now, so if you walk into them you'll see that they bend down to the ground. I don't find this particularly realistic, especially seeing as if you step back they bounce back up again. So yeah, it's like you turn on the fact that you can destroy crops, yet when you walk over them they turn into, I don't know, this bungee cord elastic or whatever. It's frustrating. I'd rather they bent down like that and stayed down. If you walk through a field and you crush a sunflower, it doesn't then pop back up again. Honestly, Giants, you come so close to doing good things and then ruin it by doing stupid things like that. But anyway, they've also included field information. Now, the only real benefit I can see to this is that you don't then have to go into the main menu in order to see information about a field, and it kind of feels like cheating to me. So I was really glad to see that you can actually turn this off in the menu system as well. It is good. I think a lot of people will use it. I don't think I'm going to be one of them. Previously, there was a mod release that allowed you to buy this piece of equipment, which you would then stick into the ground, and it would give you the pH value of the ground and the information. That felt more realistic to me than what they're doing here, but I guess at the end of the day, it's the same thing, so it amounts to the same thing. Logging, honestly, it's unchanged. There's a few new products from Komatsu and MAN, or MAN, however you want to pronounce it. So yeah, really, logging is completely unchanged. And to be fair, logging is pretty much its own unique thing, and it works pretty well. It always has done. So there's no real issue there as far as I can tell. One thing that has improved, I say improved, it will be improved if they ever get it fixed and working properly, is the competitive multiplayer. The ability to have multiple maps on one multiplayer server. I think the maximum is 8 farms on one map. I also found a mod which would help you to secure the saving of farms or something. I think I briefly read it. It's something along the lines of, as the last person leaves the server, the game will automatically update. The game will automatically save, just so nobody has to manually do it. It will just automatically do it. So that's quite a decent mod. I haven't played any multiplayer yet, but I have heard a lot of issues, and a lot of the bugs that they're aware of and are fixing do seem to be around the multiplayer aspects, like animals going missing and stuff like that. So eventually, that is going to be a fantastic feature for those of you who have friends to play multiplayer with. I'm not one of those people. Yeah, the feature itself is a really good one, so I'm glad to see that there. I mentioned briefly earlier that contracts have changed. These were previously called missions. I think they're much, much better now. But like I say, I don't like the fact that they've removed time limits and the crops don't wither like anything else. But I am glad to see that you can either use their equipment or hire your own, or even use your own. So yeah, I think the whole concept has changed ever so slightly. It's a bit more realistic. I do like it, but I think the time limits should come back in, because if you hire somebody to harvest a field and they don't do it quick enough, then you're going to lose all those crops. So yeah, I think that takes away a lot of the realism, which is a big shame for me. They've improved it, but diminished its realism at the same time. So guys, that's pretty much the quick review there, and that's what a quick review should be. There is so much more that I can talk about. I have got, well, I'll be honest with you, I've got 9 pages of notes and information to share with you and stuff to show you, a lot of which I haven't even began to talk about in this quick review here. But understand that you know, I work full time and I do this on the sidelines now, so I really don't have a lot of time. So if you want to see that in-depth review, then you're going to need to give me a big fat load of thumbs up, because it's already taken me 4 days to make just this quick review. So yeah, I'm going to need a lot of feedback from you guys, a lot of interest in me to give you the full unlimited blown out full version, because it just takes so long and I haven't got a lot of time available to me. Hopefully this was informative for you. If you still haven't invested in Farm Sim 19 and you're wondering whether you should, well, if you've got Farm Sim 17, I'd say for now stick with it, because the likes of I have found a mod for gears for the tractor, so that's a really good improvement. I have found a mod for manual attaching, so that's a really good inclusion for Farm Sim 19. And there's a lot of mods out there which are very good, but none of the big ones, things like Follow Me or Realism mods, none of those seem to exist. So in reality, if you've got Farm Sim 17 and you've got a whole load of mods like seasons, etc., then I just stick with that for the time being. There's no rush. This game will be on sale at some point, and the big important mods, they're just not available right now. And you know, as I said earlier on, right at the beginning, I don't think Farm Sim is a decent game. I think it's a platform, a framework from which a decent game can be made, but that's 100% reliant on the modding community. And at the moment, I don't know if it's more difficult than it has been in the past, whether they're dragging their feet, maybe they've lost interest, but it certainly seems to be taking longer for maps and mods to appear. And yeah, I'm not sure why that is, to be totally honest with you, because Farm Sim 19 is the best Farm Sim iteration that's been released. It's got loads of bugs, loads of issues, but it's definitely better in pretty much every single area, especially the UI. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's 50-50. It's good in one side, bad on the other, and without those mods to really kind of push it in the good direction, it's just very much the same as it was the day it released, which is not very good. So hopefully that's helped you guys. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this review. Thank you for your time and your patience. And if you want to see more, hit that thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section what you think. If I've got anything wrong or you've got any information, any updated information, feel free to let me know. I read every comment and I try and respond to as many as I can. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Till next time. Goodbye.